as I said to the other panelists, I'm going to give you each about 20 minutes, about 17, 18 minutes in. I'll give you a heads up. If we have time at the end, we'll take questions. Okay? Good afternoon and welcome. I apologize for the late start, even though I had nothing to do with it. And our first speaker is Mr. Francois, forgive me if I butcher this, Grossan. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I have to introduce myself. I will do in French because my English is not as good as you can expect. Je m'appelle François Gruson, je suis architecte, je suis professeur à l'école d'architecture de Paris-Val de Seine, juste à côté d'ici, et j'interviens également à l'université Paris Diderot, également juste à côté d'ici. Et je suis par ailleurs, pour ceux qui l'ont vu hier ou qui le verront peut-être aujourd'hui ou demain. You don't have the translation?
No, they're not doing it for anybody.
Ah, we have to wait. We have to wait, perhaps.
Are they on lunch break?
Yes, a coffee break,
I'm
perhaps.
sorry I rushed you.
Yeah, we have to get the
Freedom of the lodge.
You sure you're on
Okay,
the right
wait
one?
2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
Is anybody hearing it? No, nobody hears
No.
it.
Okay, let's wait a bit. This is French organization. You know?
No, it has nothing to do. This can happen.
Scottish Rite has offices all over the States. I mean, in the States.
C'est chaud.
Un peu.
You live in it? How many lodges? What do you call valleys?
Si je retrouve.
It's probably Lodge of Scotland? No, oh, it's not. Oh, it's
Oh,
not
pas
Scottish.
question.
Oh, Scottish, right. Okay, so it's different. Okay. It's not the
C'est chaud, hein?
Oui.
Okay. Some people want to be able to every single day. So they
Okay, I try.
Il faut parler.
It's okay. Et si je parle français, est-ce que vous avez bien la traduction? Très bien. Donc je vais me représenter à nouveau, j'en suis désolé. Je m'appelle François Gruson, je suis architecte, je suis professeur à l'École nationale supérieure d'architecture de Paris-Val de Seine, qui est juste à côté d'ici, et j'interviens pour des séminaires à l'université de Paris Diderot, qui est également juste derrière. Et je suis, en tant qu'architecte et muséographe, pour ceux qui l'ont vu hier ou qui le verront dans les jours qui viennent, l'auteur du musée de la franc-maçonnerie rue Cadet. Alors je vais vous entretenir de l'architecture maçonnique, qui est un sujet malheureusement trop peu étudié à mon goût. Je m'aperçois, puisque j'ai démarré un travail de recherche il y a maintenant quelques années sur ce sujet, qu'à part le catalogue d'exposition de Maurice Culot aux archives d'architecture moderne à Bruxelles en 2006 et une exposition que nous avons organisée à la Grande Loge de France en 2010, ce sujet reste à peu près inexploité, à peu près partout sur l'ensemble de la planète, et donc on va essayer de le débrouiller un petit peu aujourd'hui. Alors j'aborderai ce sujet un petit peu comme ça, un peu sur la brèche, sur le côté, avec trois aspects. Un premier aspect qui est la notion de modèle architectural, c'est-à-dire le temple maçonnique en tant que modèle architectural universel, puisque, comme vous le savez, tous les temples maçonniques du monde sont constitués sur le même système, sur le même dispositif spatial. Ensuite, j'aborderai la question de la différenciation de ce modèle par ce que j'appellerais des tropismes culturels, et je terminerai brièvement, je ferai une petite conclusion sur une alerte sur l'état de cet héritage qui est réellement en danger un peu partout dans le monde. Première partie, donc, le temple maçonnique en tant que modèle architectural. Alors, je ne reviendrai pas, on en a parlé tout à l'heure, sur ses origines anglaises, et londoniennes en particulier, avec cette taverne de l'Oie et le Grill, The Goose and the Gridiron, à Londres. Ce qui m'intéresse évidemment en tant qu'architecte, c'est ce que j'ai mis en rose ici sur cette image, c'est-à-dire ce premier étage qui constitue en quelque sorte une sorte d'embryon de ce que va devenir un temple maçonnique, c'est-à-dire un dispositif spatial où on reconnaît déjà une pièce principale dans lequel on va faire le déroulement des activités rituelles et puis un espace d'introduction que l'on voit sur le côté. comme on le sait, la franc-maçonnerie, dans ses origines, est un art nomade. C'est un art qui se pratique à Londres dans les pubs et les tavernes, à Paris chez les traiteurs, parfois chez les salons des particuliers, et on voit effectivement que le temple maçonnique à l'origine, c'est ce que l'on voit ici, c'est-à-dire un dispositif mobilier dans lequel on installe un certain nombre d'éléments et que l'on désinstalle à la fin de la cérémonie. Ça peut se passer comme ici en Irlande, autour d'une table, dans un château, certainement quelque part dans la province, dans la campagne irlandaise, ou comme ici, dans ces fameuses gravures dites de Gabanon, dans le salon d'un particulier. On voit ici que le dispositif spatial, en fait, n'est pas lié à l'architecture elle-même, qui est un salon, tout ce qui est de plus ordinaire. On distingue même un sofa à l'arrière de l'image. Mais ce qui nous intéresse évidemment, c'est comment l'organisation des personnages dans la pièce, autour de ce que l'on voit au centre, c'est-à-dire le tapis de loge, constitue l'embryon d'un système rituel, mais également d'un système spatial qui va donner la forme ensuite à ce que l'on appelle aujourd'hui un temple maçonnique. Alors, on voit bien qu'au centre de cette image, qui est bien connue, il y a ce document, cet élément, ce qu'on appelle un tracé de loge. En français, on appelle ça un tapis de loge. Et souvent, là, c'est la divulgation de Perrault, en 1744, la divulgation de l'abbé Perrault. En fait, ce que l'on voit souvent comme titre pour ce type de document graphique, c'est « Plan de la loge ». Alors je pense qu'il est intéressant de prendre ce terme pour ce qu'il nous dit, c'est-à-dire qu'on est en face d'un plan, c'est-à-dire d'un document d'architecture qui montre comment l'espace doit être disposé. Il s'agit ici d'un dispositif spatial qui est évidemment d'abord mental, on le sait bien, dans la construction finalement autant un espace mental et spirituel que d'un espace pratique, mais vous allez voir que petit à petit cette disposition mentale en réalité va devenir une réalité physique de l'espace. Alors aujourd'hui, ça n'a pas beaucoup changé. J'en ai mis un comme ça. Alors celui-là, il est au RE2A. On peut continuer à tracer de la même manière ce tracé de loge en début de tenue à la craie sur le sol. Et on voit bien que là aussi, on est en face d'une sorte de programme, schedule, comme on dit en anglais, qui est à la fois un programme d'un espace virtuel à construire en soi, mais également le programme d'un espace physique à réaliser. Alors, la référence, évidemment, de ce document, de ce tracé, de ce tapis de loge, de ce plan de la loge, c'est bien entendu cette référence biblique du temple de Salomon, tel qu'il est décrit dans le livre des rois et le livre des juges, et surtout tel qu'il va être, ça j'ai évidemment en 20 minutes pas le temps de vous le montrer, mais tel qu'il va être traduit par de nombreux architectes, par de nombreux antiquaires, comme on disait à l'époque, dans des tentatives de restitution, c'est-à-dire qu'à partir du texte biblique, il y a l'idée finalement puisque le texte est assez précis, quoique avec des différences de mesure de 1 à 2 entre le livre des rois et le livre des juges, mais il est suffisamment précis pour qu'on puisse se livrer à cet exercice que l'on voit ici sur la gauche de l'image, c'est-à-dire une reconstitution de ce que pouvait être ce temple de Salomon, cette reconstitution devenant en quelque sorte la matrice mythique, mythologique du temple maçonnique tel que nous le connaissons aujourd'hui. Alors, ce qui m'intéresse aussi, c'est qu'on voit que ce dispositif, ce plan, en quelque sorte, va migrer. Il va migrer d'abord depuis le sol, depuis le tapis de loge, sur les tabliers, où on va effectivement retrouver presque l'essentiel de ce dispositif spatial, y compris dans la représentation des deux colonnes salomoniennes et de ce qu'on appelle en français le pavé mosaïque, c'est-à-dire ce sol en damier. Et puis petit à petit, ce plan que l'on peut porter sur soi, on va pouvoir aussi l'emmener avec soi sur des objets qui servent aux agapes, comme ici une assiette, ça peut être un verre, ça peut être une tabatière, ça peut être une boîte à pilules, ça peut être un pommeau de canne. Et donc finalement, c'est comme si ce plan devenait une sorte de vademecum portable que l'on peut emporter en soi et que l'on peut, surtout ce qui nous intéresse ici, que l'on peut diffuser en tant que modèle. Alors, c'est peut-être pas forcément la meilleure illustration que j'ai trouvée, mais en tout cas, ce que l'on voit assez bien par les textes, c'est qu'à partir des années 1760, ce caractère nomade de la pratique maçonnique se fixe, essentiellement pour des raisons de commodité. Et c'est vrai qu'on a un certain nombre de documents, dont ce fameux inventaire notarié de la loge L'Union Parfaite à l'Orient de La Rochelle, qui date de 1770 et qui est une description très précise de ce que contient le local dans lequel se réunit la loge, et donc non seulement ce que contient le local, mais le local lui-même, et qui nous permet de constater que dans les années 70, dans une ville comme La Rochelle, le temple maçonnique est déjà fixé en tant que modèle et pratiquement il ne bougera plus. Hein, j'ai trouvé cette photo sur le site d'un célèbre magazine à Potin français qui s'appelle Le Point, et on voit ici, alors pour ceux qui ne le savent pas, je le dis, c'est le temple de Dijon, le temple de la Grande Loge de France à Dijon. On voit bien que le dispositif spatial, grosso modo, n'a pas beaucoup évolué depuis la fin du XVIIIe siècle. Alors, ce modèle, comme tout modèle, a des invariants. L'invariant essentiel, c'est évidemment la structure tripartite de l'espace, structure organisée, vous le savez, en trois éléments. L'oulam, que l'on appelle en français plutôt le parvis, peut-être là aussi par référence, Pierre Mollier le disait ce matin, que les maçons français aiment beaucoup utiliser les termes religieux, et donc on appelle ça un parvis, évidemment, en référence au parvis du temple, mais aussi au parvis de nos églises. Le hécal, qui constitue finalement la partie centrale du temple, et le débir, le Saint des Saints, qui en constitue l'Orient, où siège le vénérable maître. Tous les temples maçonniques dans le monde, en tout cas pour ce qui est de la maçonnerie symbolique des 3 premiers degrés, tous les temples maçonniques dans le monde sont constitués selon cette structure. Alors pour ceux qui sont francs-maçons, ils vont dire c'est bien normal, mais pour l'architecte qui essaye de se détacher justement de ses connaissances maçonniques et qui s'intéresse à un phénomène qui est justement la constitution d'un modèle architectural invariant, ceci est assez exceptionnel parce que la fixation de ce modèle se passe sur un temps extrêmement court en termes historiques. Alors, il y a peu de variantes dans ce modèle. En fait, je pense qu'il n'y en a que 2. Il y a la variante des anciens et la variante des modernes. Alors, je ne reviendrai pas sur ce débat qui a déjà été fort bien illustré par de nombreux auteurs sur cette question de la position des colonnes entre les anciens et les modernes. Vous savez que là, on voit ici donc la position des colonnes au rite écossais ancien et accepté à droite et au rite français moderne au centre. Et donc, cette interversion des colonnes constitue un des 2 éléments reconnaissables de savoir si on est effectivement sur un rite ancien ou sur un rite moderne. Je fais d'ailleurs à ce sujet une brève incise. C'est pour un architecte en France qui construit un temple maçonnique, il doit prendre le soin de pouvoir faire en sorte que le J et le B des colonnes soient interchangeables pour que le temple puisse s'adapter finalement à la tradition des anciens ou à celle des modernes. Et puis la deuxième variante, c'est évidemment la position des surveillants. Là aussi, à la fois du côté des anglo-saxons et des français, on voit très bien qu'il y a cette position très claire en fait, des surveillants par rapport aux colonnes qui constitue une variante majeure. Et c'est vrai qu'on peut prendre des photos de temples maçonniques à peu près partout dans le monde et savoir s'ils pratiquent un rite moderne ou un rite ancien, simplement en regardant la position des surveillants. Alors, ce qui est évidemment assez fascinant, là aussi, quand on essaye de se détacher de ce que l'on connaît de la pratique maçonnique, c'est le caractère universel pratiquement de ce modèle, puisqu'on a pratiquement les mêmes images et les mêmes représentations spatiales à peu près partout dans le monde. Alors, j'en ai mis quasiment en vrac, ici à Aberdeen en Écosse, Tokyo au Japon, qui est un temple très récent, Dordrecht aux Pays-Bas 1837, qui est assez tôt, Copenhague au Danemark, Périgueux en France. Vous voyez, on est quand même sur vraiment des lieux, des orients, comme nous disons, très éloignés, et pourtant avec des structures spatiales quasiment identiques. Et même, par exemple ici, si on compare à gauche, Bogota en Colombie en haut, la Chaux-de-Fonds en bas, on retrouve pratiquement le même traitement de la voûte étoilée, et puis ce petit temple en Allemagne, qui est vraiment comme une espèce de résumé de cette pratique maçonnique dans un espace qui est totalement codifié. Donc évidemment, ce qui va être intéressant pour le chercheur, ça va être précisément la compréhension de ce mécanisme de codification de l'organisation spatiale. Alors, en effet, il y a un modèle, et puis ce modèle, il subit des transformations, ou en tout cas des déformations. Alors, j'ai introduit la notion de tropisme, vous savez, qui est une notion qui vient plutôt de la biologie. Le tropisme, c'est cette capacité qu'ont les êtres vivants, et en particulier les végétaux, à se développer d'une certaine manière en fonction de l'endroit où on les place. Et ce qui m'intéresse, c'est de voir que le modèle architectural, de la même manière, fait preuve de tropisme en fonction, finalement, des nations, des cultures, des climats, de mécanismes en fait, qu'il est intéressant d'identifier. Pourquoi ? Parce qu'ensuite, quand on va comparer évidemment ces variations du modèle en fonction des tropismes, d'une certaine manière, ça permet de reconstruire une sorte, par le tout petit bout de la lorgnette, qu'est le temple maçonnique, en tant qu'objet architectural, de reconstruire une sorte d'histoire des pays, parce que les temples en Nouvelle-Zélande, finalement, même si le modèle architectural est le même, ne sont pas les mêmes que ceux que l'on trouve en Italie ou aux États-Unis d'Amérique. Alors, on constate quand même qu'il y a une volonté qui démarre pratiquement dès le début, même le XVIIIe siècle, on va dire, mais qui est très marquée au début du XIXe siècle et pendant tout le XIXe siècle et la première moitié du XXe siècle, de rapprocher l'universalisme maçonnique d'un universalisme, d'un style architectural. C'est-à-dire qu'il fallait trouver le style qui réponde à cette universalité de la franc-maçonnerie. Évidemment, la référence naturelle presque, c'est l'Égypte ancienne. Bon, pour des raisons historiques que certains connaissent très bien, l'abbé Sétos, cette pièce de théâtre du XVIIIe siècle, la flûte enchantée, cette espèce d'égyptomanie qui est antérieure d'ailleurs à la campagne d'Égypte de Bonaparte. Mais je crois que la vraie raison est différente, c'est que la tradition égyptienne, étant plus ancienne que la tradition biblique, quelque part, elle donne une légitimité. En tout cas, je le mets comme une hypothèse, elle donne une légitimité plus grande encore à la franc-maçonnerie. Et donc, la référence stylistique à l'Égypte ancienne est vraiment une espèce d'ancrage universel, absolument dans le monde entier, dans tous les temples maçonniques dans le monde entier, d'un ancrage universel d'une tradition multiséculaire antérieure à 1717. Alors en France, je note un autre phénomène qui méritera certainement d'être examiné plus avant, qui est la tentative, dans la deuxième moitié du XIXe siècle, de créer un style spécifiquement maçonnique. Alors qui est une sorte d'espèce de néo-roman, il faut bien le dire, mais où on remplace finalement les demi-cercles des arcs du néo-roman par des triangles. Alors on le trouve à Périgueux, qui est un temple construit par un architecte diocésain d'ailleurs. On le trouve pratiquement de la même manière à Bergerac, et on le trouve dans de nombreux orients, en France, comme on va le trouver dans l'aménagement intérieur des temples en Italie. Alors ça, c'est intéressant parce que c'est comme s'il fallait que la franc-maçonnerie, qui est presque une nouvelle religion d'une certaine manière, dans une partie du XIXe siècle, puisse se distinguer des édifices religieux antérieurs qui sont, comme vous le savez, généralement gothiques ou romans. Mais en réalité, l'examen de nombreux exemples nous montre plutôt que l'architecture maçonnique en fait, ne se départ pas tellement sur le plan stylistique des pays dans lesquels elle voit le jour. Et donc assez logiquement, quand on va en Inde, on trouve des temples maçonniques de style indien ou hindou. Et quand on va, par exemple, ici au Mexique ou en Californie, même des références, puisqu'il y a toujours cette question de la référence à une forme d'antiquité, les références ici à l'architecture précolombienne que l'on peut trouver dans une certaine partie de l'Amérique centrale ou de l'Amérique du Nord. Et puis évidemment, on n'échappe pas non plus aux spécificités des tropismes locaux, c'est-à-dire effectivement le communautarisme. Je vais aller un peu vite parce que il reste plus beaucoup de temps. Les tropismes techniques, c'est-à-dire effectivement l'utilisation des moyens du bord, et là aussi, ça produit des formes architecturales finalement qui sont différenciées par les moyens qui sont à disposition des constructeurs. J'aime beaucoup le temple de Belton dans le Montana, cette espèce de maison de trappeur qui est en même temps un temple maçonnique. Et puis aussi, évidemment, l'incursion de la modernité, parce que même si la franc-maçonnerie est un art de tradition, pour autant, elle s'inscrit à un moment donné dans une écriture d'une architecture moderne. Et puis enfin, les tropismes religieux, effectivement, la position du temple maçonnique dans la cité n'est pas du tout la même selon qu'on est dans des pays où elle est réprimée, comme en Italie, où elle se cache. Vous voyez ici à Perugia, où le temple est à l'intérieur d'une maison et complètement invisible pour celui qui ne sait pas qu'il est là, ou même en France, ça peut arriver dans d'anciennes chapelles, alors que, ou des formes de discrétion qui ressemblent à des maisons bourgeoises, alors que dans les pays du Nord, en particulier dans les pays protestants, ça a été un petit peu évoqué tout à l'heure par Roger Daché, cette différenciation d'ailleurs, dans les pays protestants, l'architecture maçonnique se montre en tant qu'institution dans la ville, comme ici à Oslo ou à Copenhague. Je vais terminer très vite quand même en jetant un petit peu ce cri d'alarme, puisque nous sommes sur une conférence mondiale. Il faut que nous prenions aussi à cœur de défendre ce patrimoine, cet héritage que nous avons en commun, de temples qui sont en train de disparaître, comme ici ce magnifique temple Shriner à Wilkes-Barre en Pennsylvanie, ou à Aurora, qui sont des temples qui... Alors il y a plein de cas de disparition. Le Pakistan, c'est bien entendu l'arrivée de gouvernements religieux intolérants. Ça peut être aussi des tremblements de terre, comme ici à l'Aquila en Italie. Ça peut être des guerres civiles, comme au Libéria. J'aurais pu mettre la Grande Loge à Monrovia, qui est aussi un bâtiment complètement ruiné. Ça peut être aussi tout simplement des abandons, des choses qui disparaissent. Et là, franchement, je pense quand on voit ces beaux temples comme ceux-là qui sont en cours de démolition aujourd'hui, on se dit qu'il faut vraiment trouver une solution pour leur trouver un avenir à ces bâtiments. Certains s'en sont déjà emparés. J'ai trouvé énormément de petites annonces dans les agences immobilières américaines, de magnifiques temples maçonniques à vendre, parfois pour quelques dizaines ou quelques centaines de milliers de dollars, alors que c'était des bâtiments parfois les plus précieux jamais construits dans les villes en question. Nouvelle-Orléans, un hôtel de luxe. En haut, à gauche, Portland, Oregon, un musée pour la ville, et à droite, et j'en profitais pour lui rendre un hommage, les archives d'architecture moderne, petit temple du droit humain, qui est une pure merveille construit par un architecte qui s'appelait Fernand Baudson, et qui est aujourd'hui le lieu d'exposition des archives d'architecture moderne. Maurice Culot, architecte, historien de l'architecture, était le premier, bien qu'il ne soit pas maçon, à s'intéresser à ce patrimoine, et je voulais lui rendre hommage aujourd'hui.
Bien, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Martin nous a demandé de nous présenter nous-mêmes, ce qui sera plus facile pour nous. Donc, Junior First, je vais vous présenter Hervé Ouin-Lecoq, qui est membre de plusieurs associations maçonniques, comme l'Institut maçonnique de France, dans sa section Provence. Il collabore aussi au magazine Renaissance traditionnelle et à la Masonic Historical Society. Ces trois organisations dont il est principalement community manager et webmaster. Il est aussi membre de la Guilde des blogueurs maçonniques qui unit les 18 plus importants blogs maçonniques de langue française. Peut-être attendre le PowerPoint aussi, voilà. Peut-être lancer le... Voilà.
Alors Dominique Sapia, lui, a un profil plus atypique, puisqu'il est surtout connu, on va dire chez nous, comme le kiné des stars, des comédies musicales Notre-Dame de Paris à la Formule 1, en passant par Paul McCartney, ou des stars encore plus internationales que vos enfants et vos petits-enfants connaissent, à savoir Violetta. Mais il est aussi président de l'Institut maçonnique de France, section Provence, et il est membre aussi du comité éditorial de la revue Renaissance traditionnelle. Aujourd'hui, nous allons vous présenter une étude sur les bijoux, les ornements, les meubles, à travers, on va dire, le temps et l'espace, mais surtout en se focalisant uniquement sur les bijoux. Car vous allez le voir, cela nécessite énormément de temps pour parler d'un simple élément. Et comme nous sommes en France et que nous sommes français, nous allons faire l'intervention en anglais.
Thank you, Pierre Mollier, to never said us that we have a live translation. It's an honor to be here today to present you with our research entitled Jewels, Ornaments, Lights and Furniture, a historical and statistical study through time and countries, the appearance of movable and immovable jewels, 1696-1801. The title is vast, not to mention long. However, today's focus on movable and immovable jewelry is merely an overview of our much wider research that we are currently working on, encompassing jewelry, furniture, ornaments, as well as the lights, which will eventually appear in the form of an article and a book. So for today, let's talk about the movable and immovable jewels and ask ourselves, when did they appear? Were they always such as we know them today? And if not, how have they evolved? We shall try and find answers to all these questions, firstly citing our sources, the sources we used, then going on to explain our analysis of the period studied, and lastly, we shall go into more detail about the discrepancies and the questions that arose from our study. Diapo. La 3 peut-être? Okay. Following the example of René Desaguliers' research on stones, columns, and pillars, we used old text establishing beforehand a list of those that are respected and which can be taken seriously. This gave us a database of 62 sources. These texts are originally Scottish, Irish, English, French, and Swiss. They range from the 1696 Edinburgh Register House manuscript to the Régulateur du Maçon of 1801.
In order to study them, we needed a method, which was taught to us by the LNF, the National French Lodge, based on the model developed in the 60s by René Guilly and other brothers, by taking the sources and comparing them. Of course, thanks to computers, we no longer have to do as René used to do, with the precious help of his wife, doing the typing, photocopying, cutting out, and sticking everything onto individual sheets. However, the work is the same. The research that we carried out involved a database of 62 texts, limited to 44, 14 in English and 20 in French, where the jewels appeared and are listed in table form, which we have simplified for this conference. In the original tables, for each text, there is a question in the catechisms. Do you have any jewels in your lodge? Where traditionally, in Europe, there are two answers, 3 movable and 3 immovable, which is only 6 words. In fact, this simple question has 20 pages of nuances, which just goes to show that it wasn't always that easy. If today we can cite the square, the level, the plumb, and the rough ashlar, the perfect ashlar, and the traceable, it has not always been the case. So, of course, we're not going to read you these 20 pages that we've written. Instead, we shall present you with some of our findings, which are part of a much wider research. But for you to understand why we didn't show you precisely all of our work on this presentation, maybe we can just show you the mass it represents only for one simple question from 1696 to 1801. So, for the record, the police is in 12. So, with your help.
Are we drilling for oil?
Yes. So we can put this over there.
Oops. It's okay.
It's okay. No, it's okay. We can.
I can let go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't need you anymore.
So this is very long. In a way, you're attending, in fact, the trailer for the full works on jewelry, furniture, ornaments, and lights. So firstly, let us define what a jewel is, because in France, and our study confirmed this, there was a time when the word jewel could be translated by bijou, but also by joyau. The joyau meaning a precious object of great value, les joyaux de la reine, the queen's jewels, yet we translate jewel by bijou, as bijou is a small, precious object. There is therefore a gradation between jewels, which are very precious, and the bijoux, which are just precious.
But the differences don't stop there, as in fact several periods can be clearly seen. Firstly, the period from 1696 to the years 1727, 1730, that's to say the Wilkinson manuscript and Masonry dissected. We do acknowledge that the dating of the Wilkinson manuscript, while it may not be exactly 1730, is close to these dates, even though it is quite impossible to use the Wilkinson as an absolute point of reference. In fact, recalling what Knut Johnsen Hammer said, that the Wilkinson is attributed to the date of 1727, but more probably written between the year 1730 to 1740, after having been used during the years 1740, 1730. As we cannot be completely sure that it predates the popular Pritchard's Masonry Dissected of October 1730, we cannot therefore exclude the possibility that it was altered by this exposure, which had considerable impact in England at that time. In any case, what we can see is that there is a very close similarity in the structure of the two manuscripts, notably in the separation of the elements announced in the catechisms into groups of 3. For that matter, the choice of the date of 1727 given to the Wilkinson is significant, as we know that it was in the Grand Lodge meeting on St. John's Day 1727 that Henry Hare, 3rd Lord Coleraine, was elected. And among other decisions, one was taken to make effective the obligation for the master to wear the square, the senior warden to wear the level, and for the junior warden the plum rule, each of these hanging from a white ribbon. Even today, the square, the level, and plum are the jewels worn on the officials' collars. Paradoxically, from the Pritchard's pamphlet in 1730 onwards, there are no other manuscripts or other exposures in English which present the movable and immovable jewels. For example, the dialogue between Simon and Philip, 1740, the Essex manuscript, 1750, the 3 distinct knocks, 1760, or Yakin and Boaz, 1762. Nevertheless, it will seem that these familiar elements were indeed an innate part of the daily practice of the lodges, as they reappear in the version of the English emulation ritual in the year 1830. Moreover, as John Belton commented, it is generally understood in England that after Pritchard in 1730, the ritual was hardly changed, but it went to France and then came back post-1760 with a full series of exposures appearing in England.
However, if we wish to follow the evolution of the jewels, whether they be movable or immovable, we need to do what some of you have already done today. That's to say, cross the channel and take an interest in the French sources. Thus, from 1740-44, what we call the Berne rituals, or in Le Secret des Francs-Maçons by the Abbé Perrault, we can see a systematic separation between the said movable jewels and the immovable jewels. And again, suggested by John Belton, you can see here the French version and the English translation we did for display. And here, we broach an important point, which is often badly, even not at all, sensed by the French Masons. In fact, in their translation, there is a difference in French between immovable, in English, immobile, in French, as the French word inamovible, in French, is used of a person in the sense of not being able to be removed from a job, not being arbitrarily dismissed. Therefore, we cannot say that the word ashlar no longer represents the apprentice or that the squares refers to the field of craft. They are therefore immovable in their personification, which means that today, and I apologize for making this typically French point, we could thus use the term immobile in French as often as we could use inamovible, still in French. However, by using inamovible, we would be emphasizing the temporal aspect, meaning unalterable. The only thing being that, at that time, there was no distinction as the word inamovible did not exist. It did not exist yet in the French language in that period. Its first literary appearance is dated to 1750. It is therefore impossible to talk about a word which was unknown in everyday language. And at this point, you may be saying to yourself, politely, of course, who cares? Or is it actually of any importance? Well, our answer is naturally yes. Because in the 18th century, the French Freemasons asked themselves the same question as we did. And so certain rituals and divulgations, such as Léonard Gabanon, Le Catéchisme des Francs-Maçons, 1744, talk about muable in French and immuable in French also. So we can see that the relation to temporality is more powerful.
Furthermore, these problems with vocabulary are multiplied by the various written forms of the first Scottish texts. For example, have a look at the Register House manuscript. And as you can see, it's not that easy to decipher ancient Scots, which explain why we have included a modern English translation. As we have already mentioned, we have compiled several dozen sources and listed all the references linked to jewels. As you can see, the changes in Perpen-Essler, Perpen-Esseler, Perpen-Ester are quite easy to follow. What is more difficult to follow is when the words suddenly jump from Perpen-Ester to Square Essler or from Square Pavement to Diamond. René Gilly, as well as Knut Johnsen-Hammer, after years of research, have provided us with elements to better understand this. In a glossary, they explain that we are able to understand many things, starting from Perpen-Essler. A Perpen-Essler is in fact a dressed or hewn block of stone that extends through a wall from one side to another and serves as a binding stone. Essler is the same as ashlar or ashler. Therefore, it is a stone. Hence, by extension, dinted ashlar is in fact a corruption of Perpen-Essler. Diamond will therefore be a corruption of this dinted ashlar, and diadem a corruption of diamond. At this point, we are just a step away from saying that the jewels of the lodge are a corrupted system, but it's a step we are not going to take today. Anyway, 10th line of the first table, you can also read broached ornal, which looks very much like the Scots words broad oval, broad mole, brobid ornal, or covered kinol. Here again, viewed from France, it's a question of corruption. Regarding the English broached ornal, it will seem is in fact the same as broached dornal. In fact, a broached stone is a stone which was worked with a chisel or broaching axe. The ornal, urnal was a kind of soft white building stone. In this way, from 1730 onwards, we can clearly see that the jewels were structured into movable and immovable groups, establishing a system that was something like the one we are familiar with today. And finally, we come to this system that we are familiar with, at least in the United Kingdom. And so let's cross the channel again, where we can see that the French had some difficulties translating these jewels and in giving them the same definite meaning.
So if you don't like difficult tables, you will like it. So in French, for example, the broached turnel in English, a soft stone shape.
C'est Hervé qui lit ma partie, mais c'est pas grave.
Okay. However, we have already mentioned before, and as the charts demonstrate, the jewels did not appear in the Masonic sources each time. Part of the reason for this is that in the English and Scottish texts, the nature of the sources is very different. The divulgation and catechisms are not always something very complete. Sometimes they are just an aide-mémoire. And when they appeared in France, we could say that jewels were systematically represented because French Freemasons in need of instructions wanted the most complete translations. Nevertheless, the big difference is in the explanation of the moral value attributed to these jewels. As you remember, in the beginning, the jewels had absolutely no symbolical significance at all in the text, or even if they did have one, it was only a nudge, which we can know because written nowhere. What we can ascertain is the appearance of an operative symbolism circa 1740, circa, when the purpose of the tool started to be explained. Shape the stone, sharpen the tools. Then, from 1760-1780 in France, a moral value were attributed to the tools as we can find in the ritual UK and some others like the Acts of Wilhelmsbad. And so, to conclude, if you listen to an old master of the rectified Scottish Rite, he will tell you that to be a good officer, it is not the man who makes the function, but the function that makes the brother. Wearing the jewel of one's function also plays a part in this transformation, like a raw gem which becomes a jewel after it has been worked upon. Bearing this in mind, the hanging of a jewel from a necklace in 1727, as we've already seen, is just an anecdotal fact, although it still has a symbolic meaning. So, lastly, we could ask why the jewels have been called movable and immovable. A hint for those of you who are familiar with Christian religions could be that festivals provided the framework for daily life. But did you know that these religious festivals were divided into two categories? There were, and still are, movable feasts and immovable feasts. Movable festivals were based on the celebration of events, the dates of which varied, and were calculated by the solar and lunar cycles in order to give men's activities a framework, as Easter is an example. However, there are also immovable festivals, which, whatever happens, will always be on the same date as their focal points which allow men to come on landmarks in the community, as Christmas is. So, following on from this, we may ask ourselves, but where did the church get inspiration from to call this festival movable and immovable? Well, maybe you will find the answer in the book that we're working on at the moment, and I hope that this paper has made you want to read it. Thank you for your attention.
Hillary, if you'll introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Hillary Anderson Stelling. I'm the Director of Exhibitions and Audience Development at the Scottish Rite Masonic Museum and Library in Lexington, Massachusetts. And I'm going to be talking to you today. My paper is based on some work we did in preparation for an exhibition called Every Variety of Painting for Lodges, which is about Masonic furniture and folk art in the museum's collection. That's the green arrow, yeah? Okay. When Paul Revere addressed his brethren at the conclusion of his term as the Grand Master of Massachusetts in 1797, he enthused, "It is the greatest happiness of my life to have presided in the Grand Lodge at a time when Freemasonry has attained so great a height." Among his accomplishments as Grand Master, Paul Revere chartered 23 new lodges. Revere was part of a trend in the early decades of the 1800s when Masons established lodges throughout New England's growing communities at a rapid pace. Along with their charters, each of these lodges required meeting rooms and furnishings to undertake their work. The thriving state of Masonry in Massachusetts spurred business for ornamental painters, furniture makers, and other artisans. New lodges commissioned everything from chairs to tracing boards, staffs to paintings for fitting up the hall in Masonic style. Lodge members invested time, thought, and money into their new lodge room furnishings. In 1816, for example, Columbian Lodge of Boston sought a new emblematic painting for their lodge room, and members asked the committee charged with the task to commission an ornament worthy of the lodge's standing with its sister lodges. When the finished work was displayed, the secretary recorded, "Its elegance commanded much attention and applause." Exploration of lodge records and existing objects hints at the visually exciting settings Masons made in the early 1800s. In my time with you this afternoon, I'd like to talk about the distinctive material world that Massachusetts Freemasons created in the 1790s through the 1820s and how we can learn about it from inventories of lodge property. Thank you. This world is difficult to uncover today. Shifting tastes, changes in location, building fires, evolving tradition, and ebbs and flows in membership have taken a toll on the paintings, furnishings, and other objects that Masons purchased in the early 1800s. As well, not many visual records of New England Lodge furnishings and decoration from the time period exist. This is one of the few, an illustration of a 1790s lodge interior based on the recollections of a Connecticut lodge member. Published histories of individual lodges sometimes attempt to describe meeting spaces and their furnishings, but these portrayals are limited by scanty evidence and a dearth of surviving objects. However, in the early 1800s, several lodges took yearly or periodic inventories of lodge property as directed in their bylaws. Examination of a selection of these inventories from Massachusetts can provide a starting point in answering questions about how New England Masons furnished their lodge rooms in the late 1700s and early 1800s. Decorative arts historians and museum curators studying New England have long turned to household inventories created as part of the estate probate process to better understand material culture and the built landscape. Scholars have identified some pitfalls in working with these household inventories. The antiquated or vernacular terms used on these inventories can be ambiguous or difficult to parse. It can also be challenging for historians to compare household inventories to draw larger conclusions. Record keeping varied over time and from community to community. More importantly, only a small percentage of households were inventoried, so inventories only tell part of the story. Regardless of their peculiarities as historical evidence, household probate inventories offer, as one scholar has noted, a glimpse into the texture of everyday life, a visit to the household itself, and the potential for confirming and challenging prior scholarship. Inventories of lodge properties made in the late 1700s and early 1800s have the same potential. They also come with limitations. Stewards changed every few years. Different lodge stewards used variable terms for the same objects, and the description of these objects are meager. As well, lodge inventories, unlike probate inventories, do not include the monetary value of particular objects. So, without any description of style, material, or finish, or a value, a listing of an armchair on a lodge inventory could indicate any kind of a chair with arms, such as either of the quite different chairs pictured here. As well, even when they were recorded, few inventories of lodge property were preserved. For example, at Union Lodge in Dorchester, Massachusetts, surviving minutes show that lodge stewards diligently presented inventories each year, but the lodge secretary only occasionally recorded these lists into his minutes. The inventories kept separately from the minutes did not survive into the present day. Inventories of large properties have drawbacks as evidence, but in spite of these drawbacks, they offer a window onto historic lodge rooms that is hard to find in any other source. To explore how inventories of Masonic lodge property dating from the 1790s through the 1820s can help us better understand the material culture of Massachusetts Freemasons, particularly lodge furnishings, I looked at surviving inventories recorded from 1796 to 1829 by the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts and 6 Blue Lodges. Most of these inventories are snapshots, inventories preserved singly in published lodge histories that outline a lodge's possessions at a particular moment. For 2 lodges, Union Lodge and Washington Lodge of Roxbury, I was able to look at multiple inventories, 12 at Union Lodge dating from 1796 through 1821, and 7 at Washington Lodge dating from 1797 to 1829. Taken together, these inventories hint at lodge activities and their settings. They also offer useful information about furnishings that lodges owned and how these furnishings changed over time. In looking at commonalities in these inventories, refreshment-related objects, in particular wine glasses and pitchers, emerged as objects that every lodge counted among their property through the 18-teens. In the inventories I compared, all but one lodge, Mount Lebanon Lodge of Boston, recorded objects related to ritual and governance, like the Book of Constitutions, squares and compasses, Bibles, large candlesticks and sets of 3, officers' jewels, and Tyler's swords. 5 5 lodges noted tracing boards of different kinds. They were variously called flooring, trestle boards, drafting boards, or master's carpets. Most lodges also counted objects related to lighting, such as multiple sets of small candlesticks, snuffers, and tin boxes for storing candles on their inventories. Ballot boxes, mallets, tables, trunks, and stone jugs were also among most lodges' property. Looking at the possessions most commonly owned by these Massachusetts lodges, sociability and ritual were, not surprisingly, at the heart of their activities. Inventories also hold clues about the kinds of facilities where these lodges met at different times. Some lodges that left inventories, such as Washington, Union, and Amicable Lodge of Cambridge, noted groups of heating and housekeeping-related objects, like stoves, brooms, brushes, water pails, and mats, suggesting that these lodges bore responsibility for heating and cleaning their meeting and social spaces. Other lodges, like the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts and Mount Lebanon Lodge, did not own these kinds of objects. A look into these organizations' histories shows why. These Boston-based lodges met in rooms used by several of the city's Masonic groups. These groups shared the use of lighting devices and household tools, as well as tracing boards and furniture. The shared objects were sometimes owned by one individual lodge. In other instances, various landlords provided them. An examination of the multiple inventories of Union and Washington lodges taken over decades gives clues to how lodge furnishings changed over time. Both lodges received their charter from Grandmaster Paul Revere in 1796. When first established, Washington Lodge, among other things, owned a pedestal, a table for the senior warden, 2 warden's columns, 2 floorings, and 1 pillar. By 1819, it had acquired wands, an arch and pillars, and additional pedestals to enhance its lodge room. 10 years later, the lodge had added other items, including truncheons, steps for the altar, a cricket or small footstool, armchairs, a stand and cushion for their Bible, benches, a transparency, and a painting. Like Washington Lodge, Union Lodge also invested in its furnishings over time. In 1796, when the lodge first listed its property, its lodge room furnishings included columns for the wardens, a flooring complete, a secretary's table, a pedestal and steps, bench-like seats, and tables with bays to cover them. By 1819, it had added pillars, deacons and stewards' wands, cushions, an apprentice and a master's floorings, a drafting board, 3 large Corinthian candlesticks, benches, seats, 9 chairs, and 1 view of King Solomon's temple. As outlined in their inventories, Washington and Union lodges both acquired more and increasingly specialized lodge furnishings in the 1810s and 1820s. This pattern supports what historians studying American Freemasonry have observed. Stephen Bullock, for example, has noted that New England Masons, spurred in part by rapidly increasing membership, became newly interested in both the consistency of their ritual and the way their lodge rooms looked. A Massachusetts Mason and diarist of the era, William Bentley, spoke to this changing attitude. In 1801, he visited and admired Mount Washington Lodge, calling it out as superbly decorated. He later commented on the improved appearance of his own lodge in Salem, which went from a simple board covered with a cloth supported by legs to, in 1807, a new room handsomely decorated with furniture far above the ancient style. Lodge inventories can help us envision New England lodge room interiors. Surviving objects and with histories of having been used in Masonic lodges from 1890 to 1830 can add detail to the picture. Unfortunately, these objects are few and far between. Fewer still are documented. Among these rare survivals are several objects documented in the Union Lodge inventories. These include a tracing board, possibly this one, variously described from 1796 to 1820 as a flooring complete, apprentice's flooring, or as a entered apprentice's flooring. Stewards also first listed a truncheon, thought to be this one, in 1796. An altar, likely the one pictured here, is first noted in 1819. Morning Star Lodge in Worcester, Massachusetts, still owns this master's chair, illustrated here and detailed in the 1813 report of furniture belonging to the lodge. An 1819 inventory of amicable lodges furniture noted 6 stewards' and deacons' rods. These rods, shown on view in an exhibition in this picture, were part of that group. These examples show that lodge inventories can help document existing lodge furniture, but can lodge inventories be useful in assessing objects that are thought to have been used in a lodge but are not documented? These objects often come down with vague oral histories of having been used by a lodge, but are associated with a lodge whose records are gone or incomplete. An oral history related that this desk was removed from Harmony Lodge in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, for safekeeping during the anti-Masonic period. Union, Washington, and Morning Star lodges provided furniture, a trunk and desks, dedicated for secretaries' use. This desk This desk may have also been that kind of dedicated furniture used in the lodge, and it may have served that purpose at Harmony Lodge. The history of this New England settee has been lost, but a square and compass painted on it several decades after it was made points to its possible use by a Masonic group. In 1824, Washington Lodge stewards noted, along with benches, seats, armchairs, a settee among its possessions, showing that at least one Masonic lodge in New England, they used this seating form. The information found in lodge inventories cannot connect an object with a frail oral history to a particular lodge. However, the information in lodge inventories may support oral histories and raise additional questions to pursue. As I noted at the beginning of this presentation, from the 1790s through the 1820s, Freemasonry spread quickly in Massachusetts. The 18 lodges working in 1790 grew to 106 in 1830. The evidence of the surviving lodge inventories that I examined shows that each of these organizations outfitted their meeting rooms with an array of lodge furnishings to help them undertake ritual and accommodate their members. But few of these objects remain today. Where have they gone? I believe a few circumstances have contributed to the loss of New England lodge furnishings made during the period that I'm looking at. One is the anti-Masonic movement of the 1830s. In the 1820s, faced with an often unwelcoming and sometimes hostile social environment, many men left Freemasonry. With shrinking membership numbers, depleted coffers, some lodges surrendered their charters and closed their lodge rooms. This change is reflected in the reduced number of Massachusetts lodges by 1840. Over the years, lodges has also lost furnishings to fire. The emblematic painting that I mentioned, commissioned by Columbian Lodge, that I mentioned at the beginning of this paper, burned in the 1864 fire that you can see here, along with several other lodges' property. Lodge furnishings have also suffered from moves, changing fashions, and wear. This tracing board, retrieved from an attic in the late 1800s in rough condition, illustrates why some lodges would, as recorded in the Union Lodge minutes, vote a standing committee to dispose of the useless furniture of the lodge at their discretion. Unfortunately, most of the furnishings members of Massachusetts lodges procured and cared for has been lost. In spite of these losses, a close look at lodge inventories can help us build context for the remaining objects and provide new avenues of research to explore the material world Massachusetts Freemasons created for themselves. Thanks very much.
We don't face it. And I gotta go back one. That's it. I'm a professor at Ariel University in Israel, and I'm a licensed tour guide in Israel and a past master of a lodge. But more importantly, my partner here is my father, Wolf Cantor, who's past grandmaster in 1998-99 in Israel, and unfortunately just can't come with us. Now, I don't understand something. I think we're nuts. Let me explain what I mean. We're Freemasons, and again, maybe I have some prejudices, and yet we're not visiting and we're not understanding the significance of some of our origins, as far as I'm concerned. I will be showing you in this paper a dozen or so situations where Jerusalem as a site is the basis, as was mentioned earlier as well, of everything that we do in Freemasonry. What I don't understand is, how come we spend money, time and effort going to lodge every week or every month, and many of us do not visit Israel? And when I say visit Israel, I don't mean really visit Israel, I mean visit the source of Freemasonry. Rob Morris, we all know about Robert Morris. I read his book from top to bottom, of course, and what he does is he traces Masonry in such a way that he goes back and he starts in Beirut. Because what he wants to do is he wants to get a feel as if he's a log. As if he's a log and he's coming along the coast down to Jaffa, and then he's being dragged up towards Jerusalem and placed there in the building of a temple. And this is not because he's religious, but because he wants to understand Freemasonry. Now, because we've got translation, everything I'm talking about I'm putting up on the slide, so just ignore it if it looks like, which it is, it's just words in some of the cases. There are many sources of where we come from in terms of Freemasonry, but what I wanted to stress is the number of references to the site of Jerusalem. The origins of operative Freemasonry, we'll never know the truth. We all have our different, all academics and many people have different ideas as to where it originates from. But the earliest known to me source is actually Enoch. And there he talks about the stone of foundation. It's spoken about. The stone of foundation is mentioned in the book of Enoch. The stone was possessed by Adam while in the Garden of Eden. So this is the earliest reference to some kind of a stone that somehow has something to do with Masonry. He used it as an altar. It was passed on to Enoch, who used it in the building of a temple underground on Mount Moriah, something that many of us don't know about. Now, of course, we cannot dig underground on Mount Moriah for all kinds of reasons, but it would be interesting, and one day I expect we will. Who knows? We may find under the existing site where the Solomon Temple was, a much earlier temple. And that was 3500 before the Common Era. 2900 before the Common Era, Yuval. And according to the Matthew Cook manuscript that many of us accept, the craft of masonry, of operative masonry, began with Yuval, the son of Lamech. Then we jump to 20, and both these situations are linked directly to the site of Jerusalem. The third situation is 2400 before the Common Era, and it has something to do with ancient Egypt and the whole story of Isis and Osiris. Then in 967 before the Common Era, this is the one that we talk about, and this is the building of King Solomon's temple by Hiram Abiff. Well, Hiram Abiff was the main architect and the main person in charge of the building. But again, the link directly to the site. Hiram Abiff, as we know, was a Naphtali. He lived in the the tribe of Naphtali. Here you can see towards the top there in the center. And of course, so we go right back to the time of the tribes. Okay. I hope I didn't touch anything. After that, we go on to many other situations. 715 BCE, Numa Pompilius. Some people say that our origins go to Euclid. Others say it goes to the Druids. Others even say that it goes to the Essenes. And of course, the Essenes were round about 150 before the Common Era. And again, a link to the temple, because that's where they started off, and then they ran away and they went down to Qumran by the Dead Sea, about an hour away. That's the origin of our craft, of our hobby, of our way of life. So to me, having been a past master in Jerusalem was a great honor. I would not have given that up for the biggest and best lodge anywhere else in the world. After the Essenes, of course, other people say that maybe, well, we know it sort of existed, or some people think it existed during the days of King Athelstan And other people believe that operative Freemasonry really just started with the Templars. Now, the origin of speculative Freemasonry in the world. Different views about this, but most people believe that it's 717, and I'm going to just skip on this one, because we've spoken about it the whole day. The origins of speculative Freemasonry in the Holy Land, and specifically in Jerusalem. Now, there's very little written about this in a clear way that's consistent. When doing this research, I found that in many cases I had to make a decision myself because there were conflicting reports and conflicting summaries. It seems to me that what is correct is that on May 13, 1868, the first lodge was formed, but it wasn't really a lodge, it was a lodge meeting. It seems to me that there probably weren't more than the one meeting. We have no evidence of more than one meeting. It was called the Reclamation Lodge. Reclamation is betterment, to make ourselves better. The meeting took place under candlelight in King Solomon's quarries, it's Tzidkiyahu Cave. Now, I must tell you, I brought with me something to show those that haven't visited and haven't seen, but of course this is the Raf Ashlar, and this is what we do in Israel. And there are many of our comrades at arms who then take a piece and they carve it out, and this is what we do, this kind of idea. But you can visit the same cave quarry today, and that is the highlight. We've had groups that have come from Australia, we've had several from the US, of Masons, and the highlight is visiting the quarry. I must tell you something that it's strange to see, but older gents, of course, crying at the quarry and thinking about what really happened in the quarry. Despite the fact that archaeological evidence tells us that it probably isn't exactly true, but who cares about the truth? Let's just leave it and keep it like that. Anyway, the story of the quarry is quite well known, but for those that do not know, what happened is that a dog basically discovered the cave, and that's how we sort of found the whole thing. Now, the first site, the first lodge, wasn't really under the auspices of anybody. It was sort of what happened there. We say it was under the auspices of the Grand Lodge of Kentucky, but the Grand Lodge of Kentucky just said you can have a meeting. That's what it seems to be. So there was no acceptance of that particular lodge, and that's probably why it just fizzled out. And most people do not consider the Reclamation Lodge as the first lodge in Jerusalem. Most people just ignore the whole thing. I can tell you that what happened is that our hero, my hero, Rob Morris, of course, had a personal friend, William Mercer, from where I spent many years in Ontario, from the Grand Lodge of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons of Canada in the province of Ontario, and they gave some kind of a charter to allow another meeting to happen. Some people suggest that there was another meeting after 1868 on February the 17th, 1873, but we're not sure. The lodge that's really recognized as the first lodge is the one that is called the Royal Solomon Mother Lodge. And this is probably what was meant. This is probably what Mercer did. He helped us with that lodge. We got the lodge going. It was a lodge in Jerusalem. And what's interesting is the linkage between the history of the lodges in Israel and in Jerusalem in particular, with the history of that part of the world. Remember, that part of the world in the late 19th century went through turmoil. This is when the beginnings of all the countries of the world coming to lay claim. The Ottoman Empire was at its end, towards its end, and everybody arrived, from the Russians and the French and the British, and everyone tried to come and lay claim. And that's probably why we had so many grand lodges involved in the area of in that particular part of the world. So the Royal Solomon Mother Lodge, we called it Suleiman el Moluki in Arabic. It worked in Jerusalem. It worked regularly, and it's considered to have been the first regular lodge. Now, Charles Netter, who was involved with Alliance Française, which I thought was particularly relevant and important for us here, we're in France. Of course, he's part of the Alliance Française, where I was a young boy and I went to school there. He had something to do with this lodge. He was an officer of the lodge. He later apparently became a master of the lodge, but he was very, very involved. Of course, he was also involved in forming an agricultural school called Mikveh Yisrael, and it was a very interesting period. There's a strong linkage between the history and the evolution of the new state in the Middle East and Masonry. So Masonry played an enormous role, despite the fact that there were very few Masons. In those days, there were tens of Masons. And so it's amazing that the tens of those Masons had an impact on the history of the whole area. The Grand Lodge of Ontario had this under their auspices. The next lodge was a lodge that worked in Jaffa, because of course in those days we had a lot of people, and most people lived in Jaffa. It was very dangerous to live in the old city of Jerusalem. We only exited the old city of Jerusalem in the late 1800s, and by that time there was no sewage, there were rats, there was disease. Who do you think lived in that old city of Jerusalem? Were the poor and the unemployed and the ultra-religious who didn't work. So what they were doing is they were relying upon money from people overseas. So it was not exactly the kind of, it wasn't a wealthy suburb of Washington. And that's why people lived in Jaffa. And therefore there was a need for a lodge in Jaffa. The lodge in Jaffa came under the Egyptian Oriental Order. They're the ones that chartered this particular lodge. So now we have Egypt coming in as well. They were more than happy to. And it continued. But the Misraim order, this particular one here, was not recognized, and this refers back to what we heard from John Cooper, I think that's his name, and others today, was not recognized by most of the Grand Lodges in the world. And for this reason, the brothers in the lodge decided to change the lodge's affiliation to, where we today, the Grand Orient of France. Now, we don't, as we know, as you know, there's an interesting relationship or non-relationship between some of the Grand Lodge / Grand Lodges in France and Israel. So it's interesting, this whole history. But this lodge was chartered by the Grand Orient of France. We changed to Grand Orient of France, and that lodge became known as the Barkai Lodge. That lodge still exists, and we consider it as the oldest lodge in Israel. It had a name in Arabic called Shafik, and it had a name in French called L'Aurore. So it just shows how this suggests something different to what we heard this morning from the professor from somewhere, Margaret something, California. What happened in the Middle East, what we know happened in the Middle East long before there was complete integration between the local Jews and the local Arabs. In fact, at the same time that there was fighting between Arabs and Jews, the lodges were working together with both groups. In 1910, and I'm going to skip through some of this, from 1910 we continued having lodges, and a very big thing happened on January 9th, 1932. Because of all the problems in Egypt, what happened is a National Grand Lodge of Palestine was formed. Because, of course, as we all know, that whole area was called Palestine. In fact, it wasn't just the area that's today known as Israel, it was Jordan as well. So Israel and Jordan, that whole area was Palestine. And we therefore had the National Grand Lodge of Palestine, which actually included lodges in the Jordan of today. Politics and other reasons, this particular National Grand Lodge of Palestine was not accepted by the British Grand Lodges. Not by the United Grand Lodge of England, not by the Scottish, and not by the Irish, and therefore, eventually, with a lot of fanfare, we're still very excited to say that in 1953, on October 20, 1953, the Grand Lodge of the State of Israel, of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, was formed, and all existing lodges returned the charters to the several Grand Lodges around the world that had helped and had been part of it. And ever since then, until about a year ago, but we won't discuss that, there's been one Grand Lodge in Israel. What I do want to talk about very quickly is stones. because I brought these two stones, and I want to tell you that, as we all know, stones is the basis of masonry. Because some people ask, and I know Leon Zelders spoke about it in an article of his, why did masonry choose the stone business and not the metal business, or not some other kind of business? And that has a lot to do and everything to do with the Bible, because stones were something sacred. Stones signified stability, hardness, endurance. Stones were spiritual. Stones were, you'd have a marker and that's it. Until today, many people take stones, and Jewish people, for example, they put it on a grave. Many people put stones somewhere to signify they were there, or signify, so they take stones from one place to another. And there are references to stones in Genesis and Exodus and Joshua, and in about 73 other places that I'm not boring you with today. Now, Rob Morris, and I'm skipping it, but Rob Morris talks about a story about a stone, and stone features very, very importantly. I wanted to show you some things. This is a picture of the cave, King Solomon's quarry. This is some masons standing outside. Here we have some of them inside. As you can see, it looks exactly the same today. You can visit today inside. We have, from time to time, we have lodge workings right there in the quarry. These are some. Of course, these are the two rocks that we like to show. Now, King Solomon's temple is central to it all, and really important that I stress this again.